of whose show we call her Satan's slut. Satan's such like a dog, Satan's such a waterfall, Satan's such like a dog, Satan's such a waterfall. In a back corner, cast around, and fight right the back. Satan's such like a dog, Satan's like a waterfall, Satan's like a lucky dog, Satan's like a waterfall. Now cut cause it dies, Satan's like life on the bar, and now cut cause it dies, Satan's life on the bar. It's something like a sad, Satan's like I wanna fight, Satan's like I wanna fight, Satan's like a sad. You live on the corner, come up, Satan's like a fire, Satan's up. I'm the color cut to the road, so you're on your rubber bus. I'm the color cut to the road, so you're going on the floor.
Contempt for Women by F.T. Marinetti from Le Futurism, 1911. It is this hatred for the tyranny of love that we have expressed with the laconic phrase contempt for women. We feel for women conceived as the reservoir of love, engine of lust, woman poison, woman as a tragic bibelot, fragile woman, obsessing and fatal, whose voice heavy with destiny and whose dreamy tresses reach out and mingle with the foliage of forests bathed in moonlight. We feel contempt for horrible and staid love that encumbers the march of man and prevents him from transcending his own humanity, from redoubling himself, from going beyond himself and becoming what we call multiplied man. We feel contempt for horrible and staid love, an immense tether with which the sun chains the courageous earth in its orbit, which would doubtless rather leap at random, run every starry risk. We are convinced that love, sentimentality, and lust is the least natural thing in the world. There is nothing natural except the perpetuation of the species. Love, romantic, voluptuary obsession, is nothing but an invention of the poets who gave it to humanity, and it will be the poets who will take it away from humanity. The great tragicomic experience of love will soon be ended, having yielded no profit and inflicted incalculable harm. There has always been conflict and never collaboration between the two sexes, who have proved themselves unequal to the grand task. That is why we futurists are officially withdrawing love today, as one withdraws a manuscript from a publisher who has shown himself incapable of printing it decently. In this campaign for liberation, our best allies are the suffragettes, because the more rights and powers that they win for women, the more will she be drained of love and cease to be a magnet for sentimental passion or an engine of lust. All the more so since the prodigious growth of expensive fashions has turned love into a slave, unsuccessfully revolting beneath the heavy fists of money. Carnal life will be reduced to the preservation of the species, and that will be so much gain for the growing stature of man. As for the supposed inferiority of woman, we think that if her body and spirit had, for many generations past, been subjected to the same physical and spiritual education as man's, it might be legitimate to speak of the equality of the sexes. It is obvious, nevertheless, that in her actual state of intelligible and erotic slavery, woman finds herself wholly inferior in respect to character and intelligence, and therefore can be only a mediocre legislative instrument. For just this reason, we most enthusiastically defend the rights of the suffragettes, at the same time that we regret their infantile enthusiasm for the miserable, ridiculous right to vote. For we are convinced that they will seize the right to vote with fervor, and thus involuntarily help us to destroy that grand foolishness, made up of corruption and banality, to which parliamentarism is now reduced. Parliamentarism is exhausted almost everywhere. It accomplished a few good things. It created the illusory participation of the majority in government. I say illusory because it is clear that the people cannot be and never will be represented by spokesmen whom they do not know how to choose. Consequently, the people have always remained estranged from the government. On the other hand, it is precisely to parliamentarism that the people owe their real existence. The pride of the masses has been inflated by the elective system. The stature of the individual has been heightened by the idea of representation. But this idea has completely undermined the value of intelligence by immeasurably exaggerating the worth of eloquence. This state of affairs worsens day by day. which is why I welcome with pleasure the aggressive entrance of women beneath the garrulous cupolas. Where else could we find a more explosive dynamite of disorder and corruption? Nearly all the European parliaments are merely noisy chicken coops, cow stalls, or sewers. Their essential principles are 1. Financial corruption and shrewdness and graft, used to win a seat in parliament. 2. Empty eloquence, grandiose falsification of ideas, triumph of high-sounding phrases, tom-tom of Negroes, and windmill gestures. These gross elements of parliamentarism give an absolute power to hordes of lawyers. You know perfectly well that lawyers are all alike in every country. They are beings deeply attached to everything mean and futile. Minds that see only the small daily fact, who are wholly unable to handle great general ideas, to imagine the collisions and fusion of races or the blazing flight of the ideal over individuals and peoples. They are argument merchants, mental prostitutes, boutiques for subtle ideas and chiseled syllogisms. It is because of parliamentarism that a whole nation is at the mercy of these fabricators of justice, who, given the ductile iron of the law, can scarcely manage to build a workable mousetrap. Then let us hasten to give women the vote. And this, furthermore, is the final and absolutely logical conclusion of the idea of democracy and universal suffrage as it was conceived by Jean-Jacques Rousseau and other forebears of the French Revolution. Let women, swift as lightning, hurry to make this great experiment in the total animalization of politics. We who deeply despise politics are happy to abandon parliamentarism to the spiteful claws of women, for it is precisely to them that the noble task of killing it for good has been reserved. Oh, I'm not being in the least ironic. I'm speaking very seriously. Woman, as she has been shaped by her contemporary society, can only increase in splendor the principles of corruption, which is innately related to the principle of the vote. Those who oppose the legitimate rights of the suffragettes do so for entirely personal reasons. They are tenaciously defending their own monopoly of harmful eloquence, which women won't hesitate to snatch away from them. Fundamentally, this bores us. We have very different minds to put under the ruins. They tell us that a government composed of women or sustained by women would fatally drag us through the paths of pacifism and Tolstoyan cowardice into a definitive triumph of clericalism and moralistic hypocrisy. Maybe, probably, and I'm sorry. However, we will have the war of the sexes inescapably prepared by the great agglomerations of the capital cities, by nightlife, and the stabilizing of workers' salaries. Maybe some misogynistic humorists are already dreaming of a St. Bartholomew's Night for Women. I know you think that I am amusing myself by offering you more or less fantastic paradoxes, yet I suspect there's little reason to believe in a logical development of history. The history of peoples runs at random, in any and every direction, with extravagant speed and disorder, like a flighty young woman who can't remember what her parents taught her, except on New Year's Day, or only when she's been abandoned by her lover. But unfortunately, she is still too wise and not disorderly enough. This young history of the world. So the sooner women mix into it, the better, because the men are putrescent with millenarian wisdom. These aren't paradoxes, I assure you, but gropings into the night of the future. You will admit, for example, that the victory of feminism, and especially the influence of women on politics, will end by destroying the principle of the family. It could easily be proved, but already you're bristling, terrified, and ready to oppose me with ingenuous arguments, because you do not want the family touched at all. Every right, every liberty should be given to women, you cry, but the family must be preserved. Allow me to smile just a bit skeptically, and to say to you that if the family should disappear, we could try to do without it. I was just saying, but obviously I am mistaken. It will be our children, the children whom we will not have. They will know very well how to do without the family. And I should add parenthetically that we futurists are such fighters that we won't have children. We who love the heroic instinct, we who sincerely want every masterpiece to be burned with the cadaver of its author, we who feel only repugnance at the idea of striving for immortality, for at bottom it's no more than the dream of minds vitiated by usury. Beyond doubt, if modern women dreams of winning her political rights, it is because without knowing it, she is intimately sure of being, as a mother, as a wife, and as a lover, a closed circle, purely animal and absolutely devoid of usefulness. You will certainly have watched the takeoff of Blaireau plane, the moment when it still held back by its mechanics amid the mighty buffets of air from the propeller's first spins. Oh well, before so intoxicating a spectacle, I confess, we male futurists have felt ourselves abruptly detached from women, who have suddenly become too earthly, or better yet, who have become a mere symbol of the earth that we ought to abandon. We have even dreamed of one day being able to create a mechanical sun, the fruit of pure will, synthesis of all laws that science is on the brink of discovering. And that concludes Marinetti's Contempt for Women. What did you guys think of that? I should introduce the panel quick, actually. Tonight we have the other Carl, who has a really good YouTube channel I'd recommend. I'll link to it in the description. We have Alkaz, we have Rex, we have Arjuna, and we have CSD. So what did you guys think about that reading?
It's
For
quite something.
first, I think we should, just for the audience, suffragette means first wave feminism, for those who don't know.
Yeah. Well, that was rather interesting because it kind of outlines it's like not a animosity thing like the people who try to be contrarian to the whole what do you call it, the suffragette movement and all that. They have like a different angle towards it.
No, you can see some like agreement between them and conservatives. Like, you know how like conservatives always talk about how feminism will destroy the family? You see that both of them agree on that, but their end goals are completely different, which is kind of interesting. And it's also interesting how they want to push suffragettes forwards and at the same time agreeing with feminism, but not its end goal either.
Yeah, because they know they can see that the suffragettes will cause conflict, and they want that conflict to arise.
Yeah, Marinetti said that the woman gaining the right to vote will destroy the parliamentary system.
Yeah, he's like using the suffragettes as a tool to undermine a system that he thinks is useless, that's corrupted, that ought to be gotten rid of. So, like, it's kind of like the accelerationist perspective, like, you know,
Yeah.
in a way. And like his support is on that basis, more so than actually thinking women and men are equal and entitled to the same rights. He doesn't seem to like women much.
I don't know, was it Dead Point who didn't believe in men and women as a concept, or was that Marinetti as well?
I haven't read anything from Marinetti about that. That's in the Manifesto of Futurist Women. He also says in this writing that lust is unnatural, and Valentine the same point has an entire essay on lust and how it's a good thing. So she does contradict Marinetti in numerous
Marinetti
different
would say it's the
instances.
feminine energy polluting them.
Yeah. We will cover Valentine the same point at some point. But we're focusing on Marinetti. It's definitely interesting to draw parallels between the two of them, though.
Would it be fair to say that futurism is basically masculine social progressivism?
Yes.
I would say that's accurate.
On lust, it's kind of weird since Dead Point was like a hedonist, but Marinetti spoke negatively of lust in most cases.
Yeah.
I
Just
think
to
he
order.
opposed lust if you weren't lusting for a machine.
Yeah. So let's start there. Like to order the conversation. Start from the beginning. Like he starts out saying that love and lust are unnatural. The only thing that's natural is the preservation of the species. So what do you guys think about like that opening?
I think that Marinetti sees lust as something that's inherently feminine. Like he sees, I guess, pleasure and like hedonism in general is like a feminine thing, and that only.
I mean, yeah, you're just letting yourself get controlled by what you want. But sorry, you're just letting yourself getting controlled by what you find pleasurable.
I think he sees like you're being controlled by a woman, like being controlled by the pussy, I guess, through hedonism or lust. Like he doesn't see it as a very masculine thing.
Yeah, I don't think that's why he didn't really support much of the hedonism in Fiume.
I think maybe that's why he was more positive towards homosexuality, because homosexuality, you're not really being controlled by a woman, like.
Yeah, it's just camaraderie in the case he speaks about it.
Yes.
Yes, it's like one thing when I first got into futurism is I thought it was like, like based on passions, but Marinetti does shit talk lust a lot, which I find kind of interesting.
Yeah,
I think he wanted people to lust over machinery and not each other mainly.
I mean, it's interesting. He outlined too in the end that caught my intrigue was his whole like he's basically alluding to the idea of phasing out women and just basically having he didn't say artificial wombs, because I don't think the concept would have been even like remotely into his head, but he said mechanical sons. So what does that tell you?
Do you know Mafarka the Futurist, his poem?
Can't say.
It was like one of his longer poems. It's about Mafarka, who's like an African warlord, with like the most powerful African warlord, and he gives up all of his power to give birth to his son out of sheer willpower, and the son he gives birth to is like an immortal machine man hybrid who kills Mafarka.
Wow.
So yeah, he was interested in the idea of men being able to reproduce
asexually.
Yeah, just out of pure will, just pure will.
Yeah, Marinetti seems almost like asexual or like uninterested in sex in general.
I mean, I think the only time he'd probably praise it is in times of war, like spoils of war.
Yeah.
Because like at that point, then how do you draw the line between it being driven by lust and not just wanting to humiliate your enemy?
Yeah, I think it's more of a domination thing for him. Like he's not really he's not into romance at all. He's more into domination.
No, he doesn't he doesn't like romance at all.
Yeah, I think he sees it as an inherently feminine thing.
Yeah. Which is weird because he does praise homosexuals for camaraderie.
Yeah, and the futurist speech to the English.
Yeah, he praises them for camaraderie, but couldn't camaraderie be seen as like a type of romance itself, of like a love between men?
Yeah, wouldn't Marinetti really have a romance for war? Like how he talks about war is really in a romantic sense, I guess.
Okay, so I think he means romance in the sense of like the very private romance between people, like the cliche stuff.
But I don't think even public romance, like Romeo and Juliet shit, he would like. I don't know. I think that's just a contradiction.
No, he wouldn't like that either. No.
I think that's just a contradiction.
Well, actually, I don't know, because remember, Romeo and Juliet died young because of their romance.
That's true.
Yeah, but I think he would see. I don't think he'd be okay if like a guy dying for a girl. I think he'd see that as.
I think like feminine. I'd see him like being okay with a man dying for like his fellow brother, though.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like just a part of the innate homoeroticism found in all militarism. But I think with Marinetti, he tends to be less homoerotic and more just like rigid masculinity, which can be described as homoerotic, but not in the sense most people use the term. And also, as I said, his thing was just more about lusting over machine and war, not so much over man. But I think it would be inevitable that homoeroticism would breed.
Yeah, I think he thinks that like lust in general is kind of a distraction, and like women getting involved in like politics and stuff like that, becoming less sexual beings, like less sexualized, more public, less sexualized, would free men of that distraction, and they can focus on manly things like war, like
It seems
violence,
like Marinetti
technology.
had two solutions to wanting men to focus on manly stuff, either by bringing women to the public sphere, or just like separating them from men entirely, like he advocated for and against marriage.
Yeah.
So
next he gets into like the women's suffragettes movement. I was kind of like trying to lead into that. Parliamentarism is exhausted almost everywhere. It accomplished a few good things. He describes it as illusory, and that people can't be represented by spokesmen who they do not know how to choose. So
goes into his corporatism.
Yeah.
Because he was like a syndicalist.
Yeah.
Influence from Sorel.
Most of the Italian nationalists took from Sorel.
Oh yeah, a good chunk of them, especially the turn of the war as well. To like Corradini and all that.
Especially with how the communists in Italy got fucked because of their anti-war stance.
Yeah.
A lot of them just
turned
turned
him
nationalists.
more of a. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think Corradini, he was like an anarcho-syndicalist, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I think. So yeah, I mean, this is just. Oh wait, let me see.
Yeah, when all these older authors talk about all the flaws that come within democracy, they're all correct, but yet people still want to cling to that system.
It's because they're conditioned to.
Exactly.
It makes them think like they have a choice, like makes them feel empowered, I guess, even though it's like a false sense of empowerment.
It's really just illusory.
I think more and more people are becoming cynical on the entire democratic system. It's like, you vote people in and they don't do what they're supposed to do, what they say
Also,
they're
with
going to do.
with the progressives we have today, just people are just becoming so sick of them.
Yeah. I'd
people
say
realize that it's really bullshit. Like, they're getting tired of this entire structure.
Yeah. For sure. Apparently, even back then, like Marinetti at least saw this. I think even like your normie everyman is seeing through the facade now more and more.
Slowly.
Yeah. Which is a good thing. The system needs to be discredited. I think it took longer than Marinetti thought it would, but.
Yeah, I think you're wrong about women getting the right to vote would be the breaking point.
Yeah, it just reinforced it. At least in the U.S., like maybe in Italy it was a different position.
Well, democracy was weak to begin with. I think it was more than just women getting the right to vote.
I think because like with Marinetti's, where he's coming from, it's Italy, which was like kind of at a tug of war between its like proletarian institutions and its like aristocratic ones. So he thought that if women were given the right to vote, the aristocratic institutions would lose their basis, their foundation, so the proletarian ones can take over.
He describes the essential principles of parliamentarism as one, financial corruption and shrewdness and graft used to win a seat in parliament, two, empty eloquence, grandiose falsification of ideas, triumph of high-sounding phrases, tom-toms of Negroes, and windmill gestures. Like, yeah, it's all a facade. It's just a show. It's being corrupted. Like, it's thoroughly corrupted and being controlled by high finance influencers. The people don't actually have a say. They never have and they never will.
Yeah, they're convinced by like the media and big corporations and what is like quote unquote popular that's pushed out by movies and things of that nature.
Yeah. I like this section where he's describing lawyers. You know perfectly well that lawyers are alike in every country. They are beings deeply attached to everything mean and feudal. Minds that see only the small daily fact were wholly unable to handle great general ideas. To imagine the collisions and fusions of races or the blazing flight of the ideal over individuals and peoples They are argument merchants, mental prostitutes, boutiques for subtle ideas and chiseled syllogisms. Thoughts on that passage?
About the lawyers?
Yeah.
Well, when he says fusion of races, does he mean like race mixing?
Anyone?
Let me see. Trying to find the paragraph.
I think it was very well written, in my opinion.
Yeah. Marinetti's a great writer. He's like a poet, so he definitely has a way with words. Very descriptive. He
I
can be
like the
kind of
part.
long-winded and wordy, which makes him hard to read, but read well anyway. But
I like the part at the end where he's like just being a cynicist about the family, and is like, allow me to smile that if you say the family would disappear, and that we can just do fine without it. So he
yeah,
obviously doesn't support the family.
yeah. Do we want to talk about the family next? Because it is a pretty
Yes.
big part of. Well, first I want to get into this passage actually. Women getting involved in politics will drag us through paths of pacifism and Tolstoyan cowardice into a definitive triumph of clericalism and moralistic hypocrisy. Um, Tolstoy, who he references, was like a Christian anarchist and pacifist.
Ooh.
He thinks women getting more involved in politics will, like, I guess, lead to, which this was a common view at the time. Like, a lot of like right wingers supported women's right to vote because they thought that women were more religious and traditional than men were, who were more interested in like practical things, less spiritual. So they thought they'd like defend tradition and defend the church and stuff, be more likely to hold on to those kinds of institutions, which hasn't really been the case. But Marinetti saw through that. He saw it like it would just discredit the whole system.
Yeah.
Does anyone know this reference, St. Bartholomew's Night for Women? That kind of went over my head.
No, I don't know the reference.
I don't either.
No.
Okay. So yeah, let's get into the family then. So people support women's right to enter into politics or the workplace and all that, but they want to preserve the family. They'll only like counter signal it on that basis. Marinetti, of course, thinks that's a good thing. He does not support the family. He thinks that's also an outdated institution. He says, we futurists are such fighters that we won't have children. We who love the heroic instinct. We who sincerely want every masterpiece to be burned with the cadaver of its author. We who feel only repugnance at the idea of striving for immortality, for at bottom it's no more than the dream of minds vitiated by usury. Beyond doubt, if go ahead.
No, kind of reminds me of Plato when he's talking about how the warriors should be taken from their families and raised by the state.
Yeah.
Because that's why someone compared the futurist family model to Plato. Yeah,
For sure.
some guy did that in a comment section once. I think it has some validity to it.
Yeah.
But Marinetti's more adamant on just outright abolishing it.
Yeah, it's been a while since I read The Republic. I do remember some stuff about that being in there. Like men should be raised to be warriors, and
He specifically said like the warrior caste, as in people born into like this class, should be raised separately from everyone else, so they can only learn to rely on each other. So it's like kind of similar to Marinetti is saying on how you know, the family is outdated. We only have each other. We're gonna have the state raise warriors and whatever.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um,
Uh, I mean this was a kind of a short read.
yeah, they're all short reads. Like the futurism articles all kind of like each one begins where the last one leaves off. So if you remember at the end of War, the Only Hygiene of the World, um, he starts talking about women and then it ends. And then this is the next article. And this one he leaves on the multiplied man, and which is kind of his version of the Nietzschean new man or the fascist new man.
Yeah.
Futurists had the multiplied man and the reign of the machine, and that's the next article from with futurism, which we will get into in an upcoming podcast. But I
That's a
kind of
bit
want to,
longer.
yeah, I kind of want to like focus on one topic at a time. I think like these futurism articles were written to expand on the original manifesto, so he covers a lot of the themes that come up in that were controversial. And he's just like elaborating on those ideas. So like that's why I want to go through all these articles on the podcast so we can focus on each theme of futurism in a little more detail rather than just like a broad brushstroke.
Yeah. The one thing I need to go read, which I was kind of interested in, I've been seeing, because I remember there was some kind of women response to Contempt for Women. I was wanting to go read that actually, because that sounds rather interesting.
Yeah, it's
female futurist take or whatever.
It's Valentine the same point. Manifesto of Futurist Women. She also has very different views on lust, and she has an essay on that too. They're both in this futurist anthology that we're reading from.
I think her comments on lust are kind of stupid, in my opinion.
I like them. We can debate about that sometime.
No, she literally says the pagan religions were built on opposing lust, which is like the most brain dead.
Wait, she does? Okay, that's retarded. Never mind.
Yeah, no. She literally said like the old religions, like Christianity, rejected passions and lust, which is like.
Well, Christianity does. Well, yeah, I mean, it's sexual lust at least.
Yeah, Christianity.
Yeah, it's one of the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah, like the pagans did not reject it at all.
Yeah.
The philosophers did, but the philosophers were hated mostly.
Yeah, if y'all remember by reading some of Plato's works on Socrates' trial, he was executed, if I'm not mistaken, for his philosophy.
Yeah, no, like Plato and Socrates are really called anti-Greek by Nietzsche because of how foreign their ideas were to the Greek world, which is true. They were completely contrary.
Didn't Sorel say it was justified for the Greeks to kill Socrates?
What?
I said, didn't Sorel try to justify the Greeks killing Socrates?
I don't know.
Arjuna, wasn't Diogenes pro-public masturbation?
So with Diogenes, he just did it because he thought that social norms were like a prison for man. He literally lived in the streets and he publicly masturbated to like
he lived in a barrel.
So based.
Yeah, he would publicly masturbate, and they would be
I love Diogenes.
They'd be like, "Why are you masturbating?" He was like, "Oh, I try to scratch my belly, but my dick got in the way or whatever."
A good answer. Yeah, I don't know about Diogenes.
Man, this same point's take was kind of stupid on that. I don't know where she was getting that from. I don't know what pagan religion she was talking about, but if she was referencing like the Greeks or Romans, oh god, atrocious take.
Well, there was like a concept in the Greco-Roman religion of like the less, the more lust you had, the less civilized you were. Like that's why all the Greek statues have fucking small dicks because they saw it very civilized to have low levels of lust. Like they thought
all the gods are really just archetypes of passions. Like
Sure,
all
but they didn't see
all
the
the
gods as
myths.
necessarily being civilized. Like,
So with the gods, they were just literally seen as expressions of what the Greeks were. That's all they were. It was really an
I,
outwards expression of who the Greeks were.
well, I know there was big philosophical movements in the Greco-Roman times, like Stoicism, that saw lust as being very uncivilized.
Yeah, but like these movements who were like generally more aesthetic never really caught on because of how the Greek societies were structured. Like Socrates was already killed, and Plato wasn't really widespread until Christianity. Um, and Nietzsche literally calls like all these philosophies like anti-Greek, because like the Greeks really had Dionysius as one of their gods, and like
yeah,
in like most of the myths, Dionysius gets like eaten by someone, and it's like a symbol for how the passions consume you, and like the Greeks literally thought this was okay, like they didn't care. They obviously they still had like
I think they thought of it
morality.
as a bad thing. Like they saw women's
No, they
passions as
worshipped
being a
Dionysius.
detrimental thing.
They worshipped Dionysius. They had entire rituals in honor of him.
I don't know.
The,
I've read contradicting things to
the
that. It'd be
Greek
an interesting
orgies,
topic.
the Greek orgies are not orgy in the sense of fucking, but in the sense of it was just like a party, a very crazy party where you drink a lot and get naked, not necessarily fuck, but like they were literally dedicated to Dionysius.
Yeah, I've heard about that too. I don't know.
in ancient Rome, they had Saturnalia, which, like, for 2 weeks they just drank and gambled and
And
engaged
like
in.
Nietzsche and Birth of Tragedy goes into like a lot of the rituals and the tragedies of the ancient Greeks.
Then you have rulers like Caligula, who, you know,
Yeah, but a lot of that stuff written about him was written by people who hated him after his death. Like, you can't take that at face value.
I'm
But yeah,
going by
no,
the movie.
Okay.
yeah, no, like
Arjuna, is it true that I know Socrates was disliked by people by the government,
yeah,
but was Plato actually disliked?
generally, yeah.
I've never read anything. What I've read,
In
Plato was
most of
very
Plato's
influential.
dialogues, he's getting into an argument with someone.
Yeah, but I mean, Platonic philosophy was extremely influential in
Yeah,
the
it was
pre-Christian
influential.
world.
Yeah, it was very influential, but it never really caught on into like the daily lives of the Greeks. Ironically, the only ones who really caught
Well,
on were the
philosophy
Spartans.
never has. Philosophy
Yeah,
really never. I mean, even modern philosophy, the average person has never given a shit about philosophy. Like, that's just how it is.
yeah, exactly. So it never really caught on. They kind of just like kept doing their own thing.
Yeah, but that's
And so,
not a fault of Plato. Like I said, that's every philosopher. Like, the
yeah,
average German did not give a shit about Nietzsche. The average
yeah,
Italian did not
exactly,
give a shit about
exactly,
Marinetti.
exactly. But like his ideas were never really implemented. Like maybe the only one where I could say it was would be like Sparta. But that's it.
Well, Sparta wasn't very. Sparta had their own concept of like of kind of a lot, eugenics through lust, right? Like, fucking.
No, not really. The Spartans were really passionate about their wives, but in terms of like eugenics, it was whoever you fucked, if the baby was viewed as weak, it'd just be like thrown off a cliff.
Yeah, but they had a whole concept like if the man was weak and unable to
Oh yeah,
fuck
there's
to their
that too.
wife.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah,
I'm just saying that you could see that as a eugenics version of lust because the woman,
yeah. I guess it's
when
just
the
like
man lacks lust, it's kind of it devalues him as eugenically, right? His
I mean,
seed is
I guess,
weaker.
but they had limitations on it. Like Sparta was the only Greek city-state to outlaw pederasty.
Yeah.
They were the only city-state to outlaw it.
Well,
So
yeah,
with the
that's a eugenics thing, right? Like pederasty doesn't produce a child, so it kind of
no,
makes
that's
you
not the
weaker.
argument.
Okay,
So
what's the argument then?
Lycurgus, who was like the person who established the military state of Sparta, he thought that it was shameful on both part of the man and the boy because he thought the man was not picking the boy out for his talent, but only for only
Sexual.
only for like yeah bodily pleasure. And like in Greece you had like different terms for pederasty, like eromenos, which was like the loved or beloved, like terms for love, beloved, and the lover. In Sparta, when it referred to like couplings of men and a boy, it was a completely different word used. The words used was like a teacher and student. It's completely different.
Yeah, the
And this
ancient
was like
Japanese had a similar concept.
This was more in line with what Plato wanted too, like a teacher and a student. But he didn't criticize lust over boys though.
I read a biography of Plato, and it said that Plato viewed like lust towards a woman and lust towards a young boy as very different things. Like platonic lust towards a boy wasn't really sexual, but platonic
No, that
lust
wasn't his
towards
argument. No, that wasn't his
Okay.
argument. So he believed in like the eros, which is like the basis for all passions,
Yeah.
especially for like sexual passions. And with the eros, he believed that it could transform from the like a lust over a particular man or woman to like appreciation of the beauty of the form of that man or woman. And he thought this was very
Interesting.
important. This was very important for philosophers because they need to learn to appreciate the forms. And so he thought through erotic love that just doesn't remain in the realm of passions, but it transcends into like an appreciation of beauty itself. And this is why he supported pederasty. And like in the Symposium, like they literally, like Plutarch literally says how the barbarians opposed pederasty because the practice itself was inimical to tyranny, which means that like the pederastic practice was like a defense against tyranny. But like,
I think we veered off topic a little bit.
Yeah, but this is somewhat related because sexuality.
Also, the family.
The family too. Plato didn't really support the family in like the contemporary sense.
Damn, Arjuna, we were doing the pederasty episode early.
Nah, Marinetti didn't like pederasty. He spoke against it.
In which writing did he speak against it?
I think it's the one where he said like he spoke derogatorily of pederasty in one of his quotes, but I forgot which one it was. I just know he didn't like it because he thought it was like a youthful man. Like he thought it was like literally just a way of the youth to get enslaved by the older.
Yeah.
But he was fine with youths loving each other.
Yeah,
like in the case of the British.
Yeah, like he praises the male bonding that goes on in like the sports.
I was reading the Mosley biography, and Mosley said he didn't like the school he was in because the boys were all just fucking each other, and he wasn't gay, basically.
I remember there was like with Hans Blücher, he was in Germany, like like the original homo fascist, basically. Not really a fascist, but like the school he went to, it was like everyone there was like homoerotic or homosexual, and he actually had like an affair with a locksmith who killed himself because of him.
Yeah, so like Mosley said, like all the boys were really into like fighting each other and fucking each other in the ass, and he didn't like it, so he left school, basically. I'm paraphrasing it, but yeah.
That's based. I wish I was at that school.
Fucking hell.
Come on, bro. You gotta establish.
I think he said the only thing he picked up was the fighting and not the sodomy. I think that was his quote.
He just the pussy bitch.
I'm good.
Pussy.
Yeah. I'd be kind of uncomfortable with that too, personally.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, we're not all gay here, Arjuna.
I'm kidding.
I don't want to go to that I get shit. Oops, right, cream, my bad. Slip out.
Yeah, I know there was definitely a kind of a British schooling was very homosexual for quite a while because you had very gender segregated schooling, where you just have.
That's what Marinetti wanted.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons why I say like Marinetti's policies would lead to homosexuality.
They would.
Because like you separate boys and girls at like a young age, the boys are just gonna start lusting over each other.
Yeah.
That's why I think like, futurism is more of a masculine form of hedonism rather than a feminine form of hedonism.
I mean, it's like Marinetti, he wasn't really a hedonist. But like, obviously, you can't get rid of lust, so it would like devolve into like male eroticism.
Arjuna, I found the Mosley quote. Apart from games, the dreary waste of public school existence was only relieved by learning and homosexuality. At that time, I had no capacity for the former, and I never have had any taste for the latter.
Oh my God. That's amazing. British moment. Marinetti was onto something when he said all British youths were homosexual.
Yeah, he
He's
wasn't
onto-
just bullshitting. It's
Yeah,
a
he
fact.
wasn't.
You have Oswald Mosley confirming it here.
Britain is
Well,
homofash.
That's just how schools like. I don't think schools should be segregated. Honestly, like it just breeds homosexuality as most.
That's good.
Yeah, well, I'm not gay.
I'm inclined to agree with Earl or Brock, whatever.
Like, I don't know. This whole Catholic girls' school is all fucking dykes. Like, that's just how it be.
Oh yeah, I don't like dykes though, so.
Oh yeah, well you're not a dyke, and that's why
I don't like dykes.
You're very biased towards homosexuality.
Yeah, I don't know. Dykes can go kill themselves. I don't like them. Homosexuality for men, but not for women. Literally, that's all. I don't trust female homosexuals.
I mean, aren't they statistically more likely to go beat each other too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Girl-on-girl relationships have more spousal abuse.
It's literally just like woman bitching all the time. That's all
my
it
ex
is.
had that. Like, it is worse. Like, fucking, I had the inkling. Like, she's like, she's trying to go date this chick, and she wanted like try it out, I guess, or whatever, because she always had this inclination. And I'm like, she'd become a statistic. Sure, a few months later, yeah, she beats me. I'm like, okay.
As I said, it's because women, they like bitch all the time. So when they get into a relationship with another woman, they bitch at each other.
I guess so.
Yeah,
there's no paternal figure.
Exactly.
Listen to the way they talk about each other, like they can't stand
exactly.
each other.
Yeah.
Like at least in a gay relationship, you have like one twink and one fucking,
Well,
one
they have,
giver, I guess.
Or in the case of like Marinette, you just be like buff, like masculine ass men in a relationship.
They have the bitch and the butch though, so like they have the same equivalent, right?
I guess I don't know much about.
Yeah, like the bitch is like more feminine.
The dominant one, and you had the bottom. It's the same thing with like men. It's just really weird in the context of women. They're dominant. They're in position doms or tops, or you want to call them. They're more like exaggerated inclinations masculine, which is why you end up having like very abusive shit, I guess.
With regards to like male homoeroticism and homosexuality, with like especially like masculine or militarist settings, like the notions of like top or bottom wouldn't really be prevalent because like sodomy wouldn't really be the main way homosexuality is expressed anyway. Because remember, like in these worldviews or philosophies, war was literally just seen as like an erotic, like as an erotic action in and of itself. And like with like Junger and Marinetti, the erotification of war, and any form of like lust between men, it would just be like it would be projected onto others through like beating them up or fighting in war.
Erotic in the non-sexual sense and the more the passionate sense. Like if you're talking about Junger, like
with Junger, it was both.
Can you should give me quotes for the sexual sense. I've read almost all of his writings.
He said man was a sexual animal who released himself in times of war, and like
But that's not necessarily war being sexual. That's more like releasing your passion.
Yeah, but like with modernist concepts of erotic, it's not sexual, but it can be like.
Yeah, that is true. That's what people don't understand. Like eroticism.
Like, people like conflate erotic and sexual, but it's very distinct since all sexuality, like with erotic, I mean.
Yeah, like Wagner was pro homoeroticism, but he was anti.
No, he was just pro outright homosexuality.
No, he was. I looked that up. Give me fucking quotation for the pro homosexuality.
The quote was literally talking about the beauty of the Spartan male body. That's pretty gay.
That's homoeroticism, though. That's not homosexuality.
I mean, and when you're talking about like the beauty of a male body, the distinction between it just being purely erotic and sexual kind of fades away. And remember, sexuality is erotic, just not all eroticism is sexual.
I would disagree. I don't know. I think that like, at that point you'd be calling like every sculptor and every bodybuilder gay because they admire the male body. I think that's very
fair point.
Reductive.
But like with the way Wagner framed it, it was pretty gay. But yeah, like it was like homoerotic, but something can be homoerotic and homosexual too.
I don't know, man. I think most men who do like lift weights are into the male form, and that's why they lift weights.
Yeah,
like, I don't know.
but they're not gay.
It's very reductive. It's very reductive to say that like being into the male form is necessary.
Yeah, no, not inherently. Not inherently. But I'm talking about the specific way Wagner framed his.
Okay, well that's just you reading into it, I guess. I can't
And
really
just like
argue
the way
with
I picked
your
it up from Wagner.
interpretation.
Like, appreciation of male form isn't gay in and of itself. Like, that's really stupid. But like with erotic, I mean, how I define it at least is just like an experience between two or more people that dissolves individuality.
Arjuna, on Twitter today about the Fastio podcast we recorded last night, someone asked me, where does that younger statement come from? Man is a sexual animal that releases itself in war.
I think it was a Storm of Steel.
Okay.
Let me try finding it.
What translation? I've read Storm of Steel and I don't remember that.
Let me find it.
It came up again, so I figured I'd ask on the podcast.
Let me try finding the quote.
Yeah, like you gotta think about the edition too, because that book's been fucking translated so many times.
Because like the copy of the book I have is like the very first translation.
I do. Yeah, I have the same one, so you should find the page.
I'm trying to find the quote. It was something like that. I think it was. If it wasn't from Junger, it was from someone else.
As for the male form and bodybuilding, like any Physique Friday thread on Twitter or any other social media site, scroll through the comments and it isn't like hot chicks complimenting these guys. It's like dudes saying looking good, Jeff, and you know, like what kind of conditioner do you use?
That's always how it's been, man. Like fucking
borderline gay shit, dude.
Like look at the old the sculptors who fucking made statues of Zeus and Poseidon. Like they're all muscular and shit. They're not fucking like. Why would you want to draw like a femboy Zeus or whatever? Like that's gay. That's more gay.
It's worth mentioning that like the futurists did not do nude paintings at all, like male or female. So like, I don't think they really cared.
Like we talked about before, I think Marinetti was very asexual. Like,
yeah.
I get those vibes from him. Like I don't think he liked. I think he was very uncomfortable with female and male sexuality.
Yeah.
He saw them as like he only liked them as a philosophical process. Like that's why he was kind of more warm towards male homosexuality, because he saw the end result of it as something philosophically positive, like camaraderie.
I'm trying to find the quote still. I'm pretty sure it was from Junger.
It sounds like it was from Junger.
I swear to God it was from Junger.
I still haven't read Storm of Steel, so I don't really
I've read
know.
parts of it. Like, I've read around half of it.
It might have been from Evola, actually. Evola wrote a lot about...
I've only read one book from Evola.
Read the Metaphysics of War, because that's...
I have a copy of it.
The only thing I've read by Junger is on Pain, so I'm under read on Junger, to be honest.
I basically read all of his English works. Like, you should read Umsvale, because it talks all about the anarch and anarchism.
Yeah, I've read quotes from Umswell, and it interests me a lot. It's on my...
It's very anarcho-fascist. Like, he talks all about how the anarch, like, basically needs fascism to be an anarch, or be an anarchist or whatever. Like, they work in tandem and hand in hand.
Very much so. Very egoist too. I'm really into like anarcho-egoism. Like the Italians, especially like Renzo Novatore, Bruno Filippi, Enzo Martucci.
I see the appeal to it. Like I don't know. I think it's appealing to Americans.
Novatore was a futurist too. He just like never became a fascist. He didn't follow them along that path. He became an individualist, anarchist, and an egoist. His book Towards the Creative Nothing is really good, though. I'd highly recommend it. I'm meaning to read Umswell by Junger. I'll read it soon.
Yeah, I think you would actually really enjoy. I was rereading it like a week ago, and I was like, Giovanni would fucking love this. Like,
yeah, the quotes I've read are really good. So. I still haven't read Storm of Steel either, though. Someday. But yeah, Arjuna, did you find the quote?
I'm just trying to find it.
So, speaking more about homoeroticism, like I unironically think that to be like a complete man, you have to at least admire the male form. Like I don't know
Yeah.
what else you would see. Like I
That's
don't
what
know.
Blucher argued.
Like I don't know. I think especially as a fascist, like look at the fucking Arno Breckers, you know, the Nazi art,
You have
Nazi
to
statues.
admire
They're
the
all
male
like
form
strong
in
men.
Subway, even if it's not sexual.
Personally,
Yeah.
I don't care about Nazi art. One of
Okay,
the
well,
things
even Italian fascist art, dude. I have a bunch of Italian fascist propaganda on my walls, and they're all like masculine, strong men. With
Yeah,
their
like you
shirts
need to
off.
admire the male form at least in some way, sexually or not.
No, like to be heterosexual, I honestly think that because, like, I don't know.
I disagree, but you need to admire it in some form.
Sure, to be a man at least.
Yeah, you can't just like be disgusted by like a masculine form.
The only other thing that a masculine form is a feminine form. So if you don't admire the masculine form, then you're conceding that you admire the feminine form in a man, which I think is inherently degenerate.
I think it's just to be the devil's advocate, though. I think it's natural for heterosexual men to be attracted to the female form, not necessarily repulsed by like the masculine form, but he doesn't like
it's not
admire
like
it in the same way.
Attraction. Yeah, it's a different form of admiration.
I said it to be into admire the male form, not to be sexually attracted to the male form.
Exactly.
Obviously, I think you should buy the female form too and be sexually attracted to it. It's a difference, I guess.
Like with being attracted to the female form, it's mainly for reproduction, and I think masculinity.
Oh, that's for you because you're gay, aren't you? I think I think
I'm
when you're
attracted to females.
But in a sexual way.
Yeah.
Okay, well, never mind then. I didn't realize that.
No, yeah. But like with being attracted to female form, I do think like more masculine forms have a tendency to being attracted to the feminine form because it's easier to dominate. So it's like a part of the domineering nation of the masculine to be attracted to the feminine as a way of like dominating it.
I think that's the only benefit Marinetti saw to heterosexual love is kind of the domination of it, which is why he
and obviously not everyone will be a homosexual, so like that's kind of like that's never gonna happen.
I don't know. Yeah.
Everyone being a homosexual won't happen, and Marinetti knew this. There's why, like, did he want to keep women feminine? I'm not really sure on that.
Maybe just so men could dominate them.
Because like he also liked tomboys.
In this essay,
see, like Giovanni, I was telling you that earlier, man. Being into tomboys and muscular women makes you more of a futurist. Like, that's how it is.
I'm not sure.
Wait, because you into tomboys?
A little bit.
That is.
I wasn't gonna bring that up on the podcast, but
I don't give a shit.
The information, so
I'm not ashamed at all.
Yeah, it's fine. No
I'm
shame.
It's whatever. I don't care.
Yeah, no shame in that. I'm not hating you on that.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed. It makes you more of a futurist, honestly.
I'm not into them, but I don't really care if you are.
In this essay,
not like too much of a tomboy. Like I don't know. I think there's I don't want like
some a tomboy debate again.
It relates to this though because
we're getting off topic here.
It relates to this because Marinetti was very into like his feminine ideal was like a girl who's more masculine, I guess.
One of the themes of this essay is he did definitely want to desexualize women, and
I don't agree with that, but yeah.
I mean, he does say, with Marinetti, that's what he wanted.
Well, yeah, because Marinetti was very in agreement with like Plato, who saw the lust a man had for a woman as a kind of mental illness, basically, a mania that made the man.
Plato didn't think it was an illness.
He said it was a mania, dude. I'll find the quote once.
I don't remember. No, I don't think he ever said that. Because, like, if anything, he means all passions are like a mania because they're inherently all irrational. Because like I know his view on what eroticism and passion is. Like he doesn't distinguish between different forms of love. Well, I mean like he doesn't distinguish between homosexuality and heterosexuality.
Didn't he distinguish between platonic love and love that was based on I guess lust, basically on
Yeah,
eros?
he didn't coin it as platonic love, but he differentiated.
Okay, yeah, sure.
He differentiated between the love of the body and the love of the soul.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like he saw the love of the body as, I guess maybe not. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he saw it as like a
He
bad
didn't
thing,
say
I
it.
guess.
He literally said it was irrational. He literally compared
Yeah,
to.
yeah, that's what. Well, mania is irrational. That's what I mean.
Yeah. So no, yeah, you're correct. He saw all forms of lusting over body as just like inherently irrational. He literally said it was like pain. That's what he said.
So,
it was just
so
pain.
I think he's very in agreement with like Marinetti's kind of echoing that platonic idea where he wants to, like, war is like Marinetti saw war as being a very platonic thing, I guess, like an expression.
Like, but I do think like I don't think
will.
like most people be able to like hold themselves off sexually for that long. So I think war would be sexualized.
Well, yeah, you're kind of a hedonist, and I am in certain ways.
No, I'm not a
too,
hedonist. I'm not a hedonist.
Okay, what are you,
I hold Plato's view. But
oh my God, Arjuna! Arjuna, we've had a conversation about hedonism before. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, I'm saying this is what like the futurists thought. My opinion's a bit different.
No, I'm saying are you a hedonist? Not as Marinetti, are you a hedonist?
No,
And he dies.
Okay, well, Arjuna's bullshit
it's
about the
I've
hedonism
changed a
thing.
bit ever
He's having a conversation with himself right now.
Yeah, Arjuna, you're cutting out.
have changed on ever since I've actually read more Plato. So I do agree with him on that. But my point isn't that I'm not saying like, I'm not saying the sexualization of war is a good thing. I'm saying it's just going to happen if you're going to be like an asceticist, because most people I don't think are capable of like purging themselves of all sexual passions. So if you deny it in the case of, lusting over women or for men, it will just like it will channel itself way into war is what I'm saying.
Arjuna, are you like pro aesthetic lifestyle, like no sexuality at all? That seems very hard to believe coming from you.
No, I don't really believe that. But I mean, hey, if you want to go for it, go.
I personally would disagree with Marinetti that lust is unnatural. I think it comes very natural.
I don't think he's saying it's unnatural.
No, he definitely is saying it's unnatural.
Like, no, yes, no, I remember the quote. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's his.
Yeah, he calls it unnatural.
At least, he does describe it as unnatural. Maybe to him it's unnatural. Like I said, like he comes out.
Probably was like an asexual.
Yeah, and not just uninterested in sex. He sees it as a distraction. I think that's kind of abnormal. I think it
was Marinetti the first MGTOW.
Yes, actually, yes. That's a good observation.
The case could be made.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
He did get married eventually, but
wasn't that because of like a courtship he had though? Like he was gonna get like arrested if he didn't marry or some shit.
It could have been political too. He was being pressured to.
Yeah.
He was supposed to get married, but
he was the first MGTOW.
The case could be made.
Futurists going their own way.
Yeah. So what are we gonna call it? FuckTow?
Yeah, FuckTow. Yeah.
FuckTow.
It has a nice ring to it. I like that.
Much now, and it's still recording.
Basically, incels.
No, this is a good episode, man. Like, it's been fun.
Yeah, we covered a lot of interesting topics. From a perspective that, everybody has an opinion on feminism or men going their own way. I don't think anyone else has done it quite like this yet, though. So I'm happy.
I think it's a good episode. We all have very unique perspectives. Like I think we all disagree with Marinetti and disagree with each other. So it's very
to some degree, yeah.
Yeah, to some degree, yeah. So I think it's a very like.
By and large, I agree with Marinetti.
For our website, I might make the first article on like the erotic and futurism.
Gio, you post fucking naked women on your Twitter all day. Don't be poor that card. Don't be like. Archers always talk about twinks, and you always talk about fucking hairy armpits.
Hey, when do I talk about?
Don't be like, oh, I'm not a hedonist. I'm a fucking platonic ideal.
I didn't say I
I
wasn't
barely
a
talk
hedonist.
about that here. Only
I
this
describe
episode.
myself as a social libertine. Like I like
Yeah,
sex, drugs, and
like,
violence.
okay, Audrey, you said Salo was your favorite film, so fuck you.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I like
It's a
it.
great movie.
Yeah, you said you got hot watching it. Fuck you.
That was a joke.
He said the
That was
way
a
to
joke.
enjoy Sallow properly is to jack off to it. That's an
Yeah,
ultimate
that's what my
quote.
friend said.
Yeah, Audrey, you are a hedonist. Fuck you. You're
No,
playing a
how?
good boy for here.
What?
You're like a semi-hedonist too, Giovanni. So
I'm a
fuck you.
libertine.
Here infected at the horny.
So social libertinism is hedonism, like literally.
It's like hedonism to the extreme.
See.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, how would you agree with Marinetti, Giovanni? Like, you'd be against Marinetti in that.
I think he's more like a Nunzio in this regard.
Yeah, like D'Annunzio would have totally disagreed with Marinetti. Like, I mean,
D'Annunzio and Marinetti hated each other.
D'Annunzio is a personal hero of mine, and as much as I like Marinetti, I do also love George Bataille, Marquis de Sade, and writers like that.
Face de Sade raping people.
Libertinism is a big part of like my identity, and I'm not going to apologize for it.
Did de Sade actually rape people?
I don't know if he did, but he like.
I know he
wrote
wrote about it.
You know what he wrote. That's why I call him a rapist. I don't know if he's actually ever raped people though. I felt like the wiki page called him a rapist though.
I mean, I think he wrote about it. I don't know.
I never really looked. I never looked into it.
Was satirical. Like a lot of his writings were not supposed to be taken seriously.
Yeah, like I think 120 Days of Sodom is just like it was just like for shock value.
Yeah, I think so too.
Cause like with like the French Revolutionary era, it was just like they were just trying to mock the old aristocratic order. What better way to like then just laugh in their values than just making a mockery of raping women and men?
Yeah, I think a lot of other hedonists at the time also didn't like de Sade for different. I don't know. It'd be an interesting topic to talk about sometime.
Yeah, I think
I'll write an article on this side.
Sounds good. I look forward to reading it. I think we've been going for about an hour though. So does anyone have any final thoughts?
We went way off topic, but it was fun.
That's okay. That's okay. The readings are just like a starting point. The point in the discussion is kind of to see where the discussion goes. So,
like, I mean, like, if you're going to talk about women, I mean, I think it inevitably would have gotten into, like, sexuality anyway.
And for, like, our chat, like, sex, like, never comes up, right? So people talk about sex more than politics.
Yeah, literally.
Forever chat.
Yeah,
so.
very much.
Bombachi was complaining about it earlier today.
It's they talk about fag shit so much.
He's probably just pent up and horny from all the femboys in there.
Shut up, Rex. You call everyone gay.
No, Bombazi, I have my suspicions for actually.
I mean, he back when I was on Twitter, like everyone was calling him gay.
Cause he'd fucking talk to femboys like 24/7 on Twitter, and go uwu, and then delete his tweets, and then call everybody gay for screen capping him.
Bombachi. I like it. I'm not gonna talk shit about him.
No, I'm not talking shit. I like him. It's just funny.
Yeah, I like that shit. Guy need to talk your shit about.
Oh yeah.
He's a good.
It's alright.
Yeah.
On that note, shout out to Bombachi. Live fast, die young. Salute.